Regina is actually the principal owner of RRP Marketing, and she is the former senior marketing manager at HarperCollins Christian Publishing. So that's why I said, I didn't just pick some old schmo off the street, but Regina knows what she's talking about. And Regina, can you go ahead and let them know just a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so like Martinique said, I'm Regina Patterson. I have been doing this marketing thing for tons of years. Actually, I'm based in Michigan, while Martinique is based in Florida. And like I said, I've done this in retail, I've done this in publishing, I've done this in manufacturing, the list goes on. And now owning my own agency, my list of clients, they tend to vary also. And so it's interesting looking at how the markets vary, but then also how they are similar. Marketing is marketing is marketing at the end of the day. And as we go through, some of this, we'll talk a little bit more about, it's not necessarily the what, but it's the how. And that's what changes depending on industry, as well as depending on time and, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And so now one thing that you will be receiving from the class, because today's class is free. It's free. It's free. And so we want you to be able to see exactly what you'll be getting. So one thing that I love about webinars is when they provide us with notes, because I'm the type of person, I'll ask all these questions, and then an hour later, I'm like, what did I ask? So you'll be receiving the notes, and you'll be receiving a copy of the entire class, just because if you're that type of person like me that needs to go back and say, man, what did they say about such and such, then you'll be able to do that.
So today, we're just going to talk about Marketing 101, an introduction to marketing for authors. I'm very excited to share this. Like I said before, it's not just what you do, but also how you do it when it comes to marketing. And I really want to talk about some marketing myths and then talk about some marketing truths. But before we do that, I'm just going to slide through a couple of slides really quickly. I have tons of slides here, but I go through slides very fast. Slides are just meant for visual aids. They're not necessarily meant to be the end all be all. So with that being said, here's what you can expect from this today. You can expect to have a quick introduction of who I am. We're going to talk about some marketing myths. We're going to talk about some marketing truths. And we are going to talk about the 4 P's of marketing. We're going to look at some critical questions that I tend to ask clients when I'm bringing them on board, and sometimes even when deciding whether or not to bring a client on board. And then we'll also talk about some common mistakes that people make from a marketing standpoint. So just to give you guys a list of experience that I have 15 plus years experience starting at a university. Some of these titles may trick you, but I was doing marketing in all of these, which is a quick hint. Never necessarily judge a job by its title. But I started in marketing in 2003, and I've been doing it now since, and I also went to Michigan State University. I majored in marketing there. And then I also have an MBA with a focus in strategic management. So I've been doing business and marketing pretty much my full career. This is just a quick slide to say, you know what, there's a lot of experience that's under my belt. I've done everything from the strategy development and campaign development and execution, all the way down to graphic design, to writing, to so on and so forth. So when I'm saying, when I'm giving tips and different things like that, it's not just, off the top of the head or things that annoy me, but also I've had my hands dirty in many of these areas, and have done it for, like, if you saw the previous slide, for a lot of top companies, local, regionally, globally, and so on. So with that being said, I'm going to read through these very slowly and talk about some marketing myths. And this is really important for me to dispel some myths for people. So the first one is that marketing is not advertising. A lot of people say, well, I need to work on my marketing. And the reality is that when you take marketing, and we'll talk about this in a second, a lot of people focus on the sliver of marketing that is advertising, or what's called promotions, right? It's also not social media. Some people, go and they're like, I'm going to do my marketing and I'm going to do everything on social media. You do not actually need to have a lot of followers to be successful. People, say, how can I build my followers? What hashtags can I use? All of that. But that's not necessarily important. You don't actually need ambassadors to build your product. Everyone is not your target market. So a marketing myth, a lot of people say, when I ask who's your target market, they say everyone's my target market. If they want to buy it, they can buy it. And that is true. Anyone can purchase it, but it is good to have a dedicated audience in mind when you're thinking about and when you're selling it. And so we'll talk about that also. You don't have to worry about the legal side. I think that this is becoming more and more apparent that people are starting to think about trademarks and copyrights and different things like that. But a couple of years back, people weren't necessarily thinking about the legal side, or they'll say, oh, I'll make this company won't worry about it. But as going on to the next myth, it says that only large companies are being sued. That's not true. I've seen articles pop up, even YouTubers, being sued for copyright infringement and different things like that. And so we do have to think about the legal side of it. I will say, me being a creative person and a bit of a free spirit, to be honest, like enforcing legal and thinking about legal actually makes me a little bit angry. I have a love-hate relationship with the legal side of marketing. On the other hand, I understand that I have to do this to protect my clients, to protect myself, to protect the companies that I work with. Another myth is that if you market yourself, you'll be an overnight success, or if you market yourself, you'll see purchases immediately and different things like that. That's not true. Marketing is a long game, and it takes time to build a brand, to build a product, and to build an audience and so forth. And the last thing is that your family and friends must support you. That's not actually true. So I see a lot of times that people really, really they let it get under their skin that their friends and family is not necessarily supporting you. And the one thing that I say is that there's a whole entire world that's out here, right? We have the internet. There are billions of people who are out here. You have a good 20, 50 people in your family who are close to you. Okay, if they're not supporting you, go to the rest of those billions of people and find who can actually support you. And that was one of the things that changed my business. It wasn't necessarily focusing on family and friends, but it really was thinking about how vast the market really is and how I was limiting myself by thinking super local, right? And so once I expanded more globally, that was helpful. Okay, so now let's talk about some marketing truths. So marketing truth number one is that it is not about you. This is one of the first things that I try to tell people when I'm working with them, even if it's, a younger marketing professional. A lot of times we have our own thoughts and interests and so on and so forth when it comes to our products, our brands, our creative styles, whatever it is. And we like to say, oh my gosh, I would do this. I would want this. This will be good for me. And the reality is that we're just one person out of a big sea of people. And when we focus on ourselves, we do our own business a disservice by not thinking what another person what another person wants. Which brings me to my next truth, is that it actually starts with the person. It starts with an audience or a person or a human that's in front of you, right? In this next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's that if you look at all these people who are here, we have an elderly man, an African-American woman, an Asian woman that's studying. We have a couple of kids. We have a couple that's here, smiling and laughing. We have another African-American man. We have a young lady who is playing a sport, in a wheelchair. And then we have a couple, an African-American or a biracial couple that's here also. And the reality is that every single one of these people have a different set, or every single one of these people has a different set of needs, right? And because of that, we have to think about how are we marketing? How are we talking to each of those people? What do our products say, for these people? For example, it's like this lady here is natural. She may think about something more from a natural lifestyle, from a natural hairstyle, so on and so forth. Whereas this person, I'm going to say in my head, he's maybe had a rough life. He may be homeless. He may, be working with a nonprofit. He may want something else. This person, the person in the wheelchair, is definitely a confident person. Even though she's disabled, she doesn't want to be othered, right? And so as we think about this, we think about everything that goes into the product and the service. our pricing and everything for each of these audiences. And like I said before, it cannot be a one size fits all approach to it. And we also can't just start with ourselves. So when we think about marketing truths, the reality of marketing is that it's a combination of psychology, human behavior, sociology, anthropology, and communications, right? And so if we look at that and realize that it includes a ton of social sciences, and then it's added, to business. Let me not forget that, there's profit margin. People are looking at profit and loss. There's analytics. There's, so on and so forth. But the reality of marketing in general is that there's a level of providing people what they want, when they want it. And the advertising piece and even the product piece is about influence, and it's about developing trust, right? Because people want to buy from people and from organizations that they actually trust, and that may have some type of emotional or true need, or may meet some type of true need. So when I say a true need, it's something that, like, you're hungry. So you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The first thing you need to do is you need food, you need shelter, right? And so those are things that we actually do need. And then as you go up that triangle or that hierarchy, you start to develop, or you go into other things. And the final thing is self-actualization, right? And so I'll use an example. I was working for a retailer at one point in time, and we were trying to decide what products to actually have in the store, what products to market, and so on and so forth. And the audience was more minority based, and it was minority based, and it was probably lower income people also, right? And so as we were thinking about that, they were asking, okay, should we keep fertilizer in this store? And I was like, okay, no, you shouldn't have fertilizer in the store, because, like, I'm from the hood. Like, this is the reality now. I'm from the hood. I know people in the hood are not necessarily fertilizing their grass. They're trying to feed their children and so on. And then they were like, well, should we keep the video games? And I'm like, yes, keep the video games, because we play video games, right? But it takes, that tribal knowledge, and it takes knowing your audience to know, like, what they are, what they do, so on and so forth. And that goes with that human behavior and the anthropology. Anthropology looks more at culture and stuff like that, and cultural norms. And so it's important to know those types of things. And that's why a lot of times people get into trouble sometimes when they, market to African Americans, and they see that natural hair is a trend, but they don't know when or where or how to style it and all that kind of stuff, right? Because it goes deeper than just, oh, I have this person with natural hair, right? Mm-hmm. And so as it comes to marketing truth number 3 is that the what and the how actually matters, right? And so I think that a lot of times people, they get a whiff of the what. They get a whiff of, I can use Facebook, or I can use Instagram, or maybe TikTok, maybe I can do a direct mailer, which nobody ever says, can I do a direct mailer, right? People don't even ask these questions to me. Like, can I be inside of an ad, like, how do I partner with other organizations? But people kind of understand, okay, the what I get. What they don't understand is the how. And when it comes to how, like, the fact that creativity actually matters, your professionalism in your advertising actually matters. Repetition matters. Your reinvention. Sometimes you have to reinvent yourself over and over again, because the next person, like, I've seen who knows how many marketing, I'm going to put quotes around it, marketing and social media experts out there. And so with that being said, I might have to reinvent myself to say I'm not, a marketing expert. And I actually do say that a lot of times. Like, I don't just say I'm just a marketing expert, because I know that I have to reinvent myself and talk more about, I just have to tell a different story. So that's that. And then also consistency, right? All of those things matter, and they matter when it comes to creating trust, and so on. So if I were to think about you as an author, it's, yes, you use social media, but then you also talk about why you created your book. You build a platform, you try to gain an audience, you need to make sure you're on the right platforms. Are you looking to just have, friends and family buy your books? Are you looking to get published? Are you looking for a school to buy a number of books? All of that actually matters, and it matters how you approach the audience, and each audience may be different. And that's another piece that's really important, is that as a marketer, we may be marketing the same product to different people and we actually use different tactics, right? So if I'm going after mom in one spot for, say, a pair of socks, I may go after mom one way, but then I'll actually go after, say, dad for the same pair of socks, but in a different way. And I think that one of the biggest places that you can see this is if you look at university recruiting, right? And that's where I learned a decent amount of that when I worked for Davenport University, and how I had to market to the student and how I had to market to the parent, right? Because they cared about two different things. Students may care about like housing and like what's their social life going to be. Can I join a fraternity or sorority? Are there sports teams, right? Parents want to know how much does it cost? How often can I get in contact with them? Is it safe? And so you have to talk to those two different audiences differently. In the end, it's just different how you do it. So as you're looking at your marketing and your audience, you want to think about not just the what, but the how. And it's the how that actually takes a little bit more time. That's what takes the time. And also even building that strategy, what tactics are the right things for you.
And I have a question. I have a question and a
Mm-hmm.
comment. So I'm just looking at your curriculum, and some of the things you all that we'll be talking about specifically is like how to get past the fear, personal
Mm-hmm.
branding, networking, public relationships. And I feel that this curriculum specifically for authors is going to be more so about the how. Would you agree with that, or do you feel like it's going to encompass both the what and the how specifically for authors?
I believe that it will encompass a lot of the how. I
Mm-hmm.
think that authors know a lot of the what. There will be some pieces that will talk about some what's, right? So when we talk about public relations, right, and publicity and different things like that, like getting onto radio shows or TV interviews and that type of thing, that's a what that they may not have even attempted yet. So we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about the what, like this is a place for you to actually gain some exposure, but then here's the how to actually approach them and how to get noticed and that type of thing. So it is a combination, but a lot of it is the how, because I can tell you, I can give you a list of what's, right?
Yeah.
I used to say marketing was one big checklist, right? I can give a
Mm-hmm.
list of what's, but then it was the how. And that's actually why I like switched my career over just a little bit. When I worked in strategies, I kind of got tired of just doing the checklist, saying,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this person needs this, and this. And I wanted to get my hands dirtier on the how. I wanted to write the stuff, right? And
Yeah.
then it evolved into, websites and user experience and all that kind of stuff. And so it just became more meaningful. So definitely the how is the much more important part of it.
And I do want to give a shout out to some new people that just joined us. We do have Debbie Winters, Shirley, Tamiko, Shireen, and we've been having Irene and Tiffany also tuning in. If you're just now tuning in, you are actually watching What's the 411 with authors. And I just announced that we will be offering virtual marketing classes specifically for authors. And our instructor is going to be Regina Patterson here. This is our first free class for you all. But if you're interested in learning more about the specifics of the curriculum and the classes that we will be offering, we're going to be starting these classes on May the 5th of this year.
Yeah.
I do want to let you guys know, if you're interested, make sure you inbox me your email address or just comment below and I'll send you that information as well. Make sure you also post your questions or comments specifically geared towards marketing. If you do post another question that's possibly for somebody else that I may know in the literary field, then I will definitely pass you their name along as well. But go ahead, Miss Regina.
Yeah, and that was actually a good question, Martinique, because one of the reasons why I do the foundational marketing information is because the main myth that I want to dispel for people is that marketing is advertising, right? And language actually matters. A lot of people want to focus on their advertising. How do I get known? How do I, get out there? And the reality is that we have to look at a lot of different things when it comes to marketing and making your product available and so on and so forth, which we'll get into a little bit more in a minute. But I just wanted to say that also.
Yeah. And I did want to just also point out to you guys the reason why I wanted to bring Regina on board and offer a webinar specifically for authors is because so many times I see authors ask, okay, well, how do I market such and such? How do I advertise such and such? And I'm just one piece of it. I'm like, well, you can definitely be on my show, and we
Right.
can do that. But I wanted to bring Regina on board to help you to see that you guys are not alone, and Regina is going to help you every step of the way. And so that's why we made it a smaller, intimate class, so that when you do have those questions, we will be able to answer those questions, as well as her being able to give you foundational and knowledge to really just help you move ahead and become the best author you can be. Okay, I'm
Yeah, for
finished.
sure. No, that's good. And I think that the reality is, or what I know actually as a consultant, is that as the smaller the groups become, the more personalized we can get with the information, the more direct we can get with the information. Sometimes, when you're doing like a big group, you speak in a lot of generalizations, right? And as we narrow the information down, it becomes more important. So, for example, a lot of the stuff that I'm saying right now can be applied to pretty much any industry. Like, I'll give specific examples as it relates to publishing and to authors, but I can easily rescan this and make it for someone who sells, what's the word called, who sells like bundles or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and I can also scale it up and make it for a multi-billion dollar organization. And so the foundation is the same, and that's the most important part.
Yeah.
So this is something that I really want to focus on, is that a marketing truth is that it's expensive and it's time consuming, right? A lot of times we get into we create a product, we develop something, and then we say, oh crap, now I want people to know about it, I want people to actually purchase it from me, and so on and so forth. And they don't realize that it's really expensive. And so when I say this, a lot of people complain that somebody will go buy Versace, or somebody will go buy this when they drop that or whatever. These companies are spending millions of dollars on advertising, right? And clearly, like, it's not my recommendation for the smaller ones, to go and spend millions of dollars on your advertising, on your marketing, on your product development, right? They spend years in developing a product. They don't just say, oh, I'm going to make this product in one day or 2 weeks, and then suddenly launch it in another week. They go through years of testing and trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, how are we different, how do we develop our story. They take a long time to launch certain things. And so it is a sense of being patient, and there is a sense of also having some type of budget to go along with it. And I don't care, to me, if your budget is $100 or if your budget is $5,000. Clearly, the more money you have, the more marketing you can get, especially for a fee, and the more targeted that you can get. But even if you have a smaller amount, you can use that for different things. So definitely, we talked about budgeting just a little bit before, but make sure that you're setting money aside for this. And if you decide that you're going to do the DIY approach, know that you're going to be spending hours and
Mm.
hours and hours on marketing. Like, I've been on a team that's been about 100 people, right, for an organization. And we're talking about marketing communications within itself. We're not talking about the entire company. So if you think about that, it does take time. There are a lot of different elements, especially if you're doing video and then social media and, other social media content. And then you're deciding, like I said, do I do direct mail? I used to do a ton of direct mail, which is why I talk about it right now. If I'm thinking about like what coupons I'm printing out, right? So these are all things that I think about from different organizations. But with you, I would think about things such as, how do I get into Barnes and Noble, right?
Mm.
And how would I get, or does it make sense to go with the indie, bookstore or
Mm-hmm.
whatever? And those are things that I would think about. And then I would think about, okay, what are the tactics to go along with that? So for example, I may not spend a lot of time on Facebook if I'm trying to get into an indie bookstore. If you really want me to be honest, I may spend more time on LinkedIn. I know an author right now that spends a ton of time on LinkedIn. Like, I've seen her, you know, um, launch her book, and I've seen her have a ton um, of book signings and different things like that. And that's the author route, right? Just knowing what you actually need to do versus shouting from the rooftops on social media. Hey, I have this book. No, you got to find the tactics that are the right tactics for you.
And I think I'm really glad that you said, it's okay if you have a smaller budget. Because even if you have that smaller budget, like you said, time is money also. So you might have to
Yeah.
put that time in. But one thing that I'm thinking more so about is like the building of a house. It's one brick at a time. And for you to have a foundational and stable house, you have to take it one brick at a time. So this isn't a sprint, but it's a marathon
Yeah.
for the person. And we want you to become the best that you can possibly become. But like Regina said, this is not going to just be some quick, easy fix, because you're building your brand. And that's what we have to begin to understand. Like you are building something great. And, the pyramids were, what do they say? Rome wasn't built in a day. And so
Yep.
your company isn't going to be built in a day.
Right.
But, Regina is going to be able to specifically give you those tools and think about, because this is a 16, it's actually 17, but today is the first one, but it's a 16 course class. And so that's what I just want you guys to understand. We're not going to be rushing through anything, but you're going to be fully equipped to be thinking about things, because you might not have thought about it, because we're not
Right.
marketers. We are creatives, and marketers are still creative people as well. But Regina has those tools to help us to learn how to effectively go towards those people we want to go towards, and to reach them.
Right. And so like I like that you said that, Martinique. Um, because I also use building a house as an example, right? Like if somebody just gave you a hammer and a wrench, you're not going to go say, oh, I'm going to go build a house, right? You're at least going to go get the knowledge. If you're not going to hire a contractor, you're going to go get the knowledge and spend the time, because you know how important it is to have good shelter. So we shouldn't do the same thing like with our marketing and say, oh, well, I've heard about Facebook. I've heard about Facebook ads. Let me just go, try these things. Because what you don't know is the knowledge that we have to make Facebook ads efficient, right? And to make them effective, right? And so that's a different piece of the puzzle, that we don't talk about all the time. It's hard because it's hard to cover everything, in videos online and so on. But as like we said, as we delve more into the course, then we'll have more time to talk about these different things. What are some of those secrets that we never just have time to actually get out, So that's that. And so one of the things that I really want to talk about is that people, say, well, why is my product not selling? Why is this happening? And the reality is that it's not always your advertising. And so it's really important that we start with, literally, when you take your very first marketing class in college, they go through what's called the 4 P's of marketing, right? And when we talk about the 4 P's of marketing, we're talking about price, product, place, and promotion. This is marketing, right? This is marketing pretty much defined. And so when we're talking about price, we're talking about how much does it cost? Product, what are the features and benefits? Place, where can I purchase it? And promotion, how would people know about it? A lot of people tend to focus on this bottom line right here, this promotion. How do I get people to know about it, right? And they don't spend as much time on where can I purchase it. Like they go build a website, sometimes a janky website, and yes, I'm calling it out for what it is. Sometimes they go build a janky website and expect people to buy from it, right? And so there are things that go even into the mentality of like whether or not your website is secure. Do people actually trust your website? So on and so forth. So that's important. Your product, like, is it actually good? Like sometimes people's products just suck. They think they have the best thing since sliced bread, but it's really not, a great product. And like, I'll raise my hand and say, I'm one of the first people that when I first started like designing, there was no way that I should have been out there promoting myself as a person that could design stuff. So I stopped designing for years. Like once I was embarrassed for a while and I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. And so I did it because that's what people were asking for. But when I didn't feel comfortable with it, I just, I waited. And then price, like it takes a lot of research to say, how much should this cost? I know Martinique and I, we talked about this, even as we were talking about the classes, right? And the pricing for it, just because one person charges this much for the class doesn't mean that it gives you the right, to charge the same thing for the class. So we'll look and say, oh, well, this person charges $2,000 for their course. Well, like we haven't been out there for as long as that person, when it comes to your name, your brand. It's the same thing when it comes to why Gucci can charge $300 for a belt, and Kmart can't. Kmart,
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're still in existence, right? But like all that plays a role, in it. And so like when we talk about this, and I talked about the 4Ps and I talked about the human, right? And starting with the person earlier on, there is no marketing without the person. It's once again, it's not about you. That's something that I try to incorporate, all the time. And so when we think about our 4Ps, when we think about price, we have to think about who's actually willing to pay the price. What's the appropriate price for your target market? Are they willing to pay a premium? Are they the type of people who look for a sale? I know over and over and over again, people say Black people always look for the hookup. You know that, and you're targeting Black people. So know what you're doing when you're going out there to them. If that's your target market, you know that, price accordingly, right? That's the reality of it. They do look for a sale. So know that and then price accordingly or message accordingly. So for example, you don't always have to lower your price for that market. You may have to do what I tell people. I say, state your price and do not blink, right? And sometimes you just have to show people that you're serious, because once again, some people will go into the store. They'll buy the Jordans for $100 and something because that's something that they desire, gives them an emotional connection. It makes them feel some type of status or clout for that, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you just have to say, you don't have to ask them, do they look for such and such, for do they ask, Foot Locker for a discount? You don't have to ask them that. Just say, this is my price. Right? Mm-hmm. And if your product is great enough, and if you've put the effort into it, then it is what it is. Like that's me. I don't go lower now on my price than I have, and it is what it is, right? And so the next thing is, product, right? And when it comes to your product, when it comes to designing your product, the one thing that people do backwards is they design something, or they create something, or they decide to sell something before they see whether or not the audience actually wants it, right? They're like, oh my gosh, this is a good idea. I'm going to make it. Have you ever decided, or have you ever did any research to figure out whether or not somebody actually wants that product, whether it solves a need? So a lot of times I ask people, what problem does your product sell or solve, right? And that's what you want to do. You want to create a product that actually solves a problem. And sometimes the products are, you have to make the problem up for them, right? Sometimes the problem doesn't actually exist, but you create the problem in your communications. Mm-hmm. Like they never knew they needed to work from home, right? They never knew that it could be this much better if they only had these shoes, right? Sometimes it's psychology. Like I said, it's psychology, it's anthropology. So sometimes you have to make up the problem, but the reality is that they have to have some type of felt need for the product, the felt need or the felt desire.
Well, I have a question for you though, but mm-hmm. How would that actually relate to an author? Yeah. When we're just, I'm gonna act like I'm an author. Yeah. So when we're just writing because we feel like we have a story that we want to release. Mm-hmm.
So I'll give a prime example. I have a friend who wrote a book about domestic violence, right? Mm-hmm. And or maybe not just domestic violence, but domestic abuse altogether. And so before she came out and was talking about it and so on and so forth, like she knew that she had a story. I think that clearly she knew that there was, she knew there was a market, right? Because she had to figure out, there were things that she had to figure out on her own. If I want to leave overnight, what do I need to do? Right? And she couldn't find that information out there. So I think that's part of it. Like you're telling your story, but then like, why is your story so important for you to tell? Yeah, that's I was going to say, for me, I was going to write a book. I have no discipline to write a book, but I wanted to write a book about, Christians telling people to pray depression away. Right? Because I know that's something that I ran into, and there were no resources from a Christian standpoint, especially from a Black Christian standpoint, in regards to how to get treatment, in regards to, getting away from the stigma that went along with it. So even though I wanted to talk about my story, I really was doing it to free other people from this stigma of,
Gotcha.
yeah.
That
So
makes so much sense.
yeah.
Because it's like, you know, the book that you write, it is helping somebody in some way.
Yeah.
But now you have to help those potential readers or potential buyers figure out how this book will actually help them.
Right.
That's good. Okay.
And so the next thing is, where can your target market purchase, right? So, and then what do they expect out of the purchasing experience? Some of us, like I've gone to stuff and people have promoted something, or let me rephrase it. I've been online, been on Facebook or whatever. People have promoted their book. They have promoted a product. They never give me a link. And then I say, well, where can I buy it? They say, oh, you can find my link on my Facebook profile page. So you want me to go search for your product to, like, you're not doing me a favor. I'm actually putting money in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
And so we think about like that full experience, but that is part of like the customer journey and the customer experience. So if I don't want it bad enough, I'm not searching for it. And I don't care how you feel about it. Well, you could have went and searched for it. You could have, all this kind of stuff. No. Meijer tells you, and this is a grocery store. Maybe I should use Walmart since everybody knows that. Walmart tells you what time they're open. They have signs above every lane that tells you what products you can buy from that lane or from that aisle. They have, the doors open a certain way. They have their signage nicely, let you know what's been a rollback, what's, regular price right now. They have everything clearly marked. They make it extremely efficient and easy to purchase. And that's really important. That is actually a marketing decision, is how easy you make it for a purchase. And I call it a quote unquote convenience rating. How convenient is it for you to do business? Like, I know all of us like hate when we have to go to the dentist and they're like, yeah, we close at 5. Well, I'm at work until 5. So now we have to figure out how to work, between our evening hours also to get it. So, that's just something to think about, is how can someone actually purchase your product? And then are there some physical places? Like I think about Martinique, her other business, one day, what is it called?
Today I want to be.
Today I want to be, right?
One day I want to be.
Right. Today I want to be. And Martinique did a really good job of making sure she had physical places as well as an online presence for her product, right? I mean, even with her going door to door, like some people may see that as being crazy, but those are tactics. Those are sales tactics. That's the way you get that in front of a person, right? So it was, you have to make it easy for the person, and you have to kind of sometimes make it hard for them to say no without being extremely annoying.
And one thing that you just made me think about when you said that, because when I was going to door, the people was like, oh well, I don't have any money on me. That's okay. I got PayPal. I got a swiper. So you have to make it so easy to make it hard for that individuals to say no, because they may say no. Right. And I want to help you to see, you don't have to say no. Just tell me you don't want it. Don't make it act like it's a money thing.
It's so much truth in that. And so like the last one is like promotion, right? Even when it comes to place and product, like we talked about, we talked about like, what does your target market need? But even like the place, right? I was talking to somebody last night, and I'm going to just give you guys a quick, just put your mind here. Metro PCS, Boost, Sprint, Verizon. Where are their stores?
Metro PCS and Boost is always where there's a Church's Chicken at.
And where's the Church's Chicken?
In the hood.
In the hood, right? And it's because they know who their target market is. They're not going to put their stores all out in the boonies. When they know like these people are looking for a price. They may not necessarily be looking for a long-term contract. They don't care if they have the iPhone 11, right? They just need a phone that somebody can talk on, and that they can have semi-reliability. They don't need an international plan, right? They just need a phone, right?
Yeah.
So that's important. And then for promotion, which we will be spending like the majority of our time on, but I wanted to make sure we set a foundation, is where does your target, or promotion is talking about like, how do you communicate with your people, right? But before you communicate with your people, you need to know where does your target market actually spend their time? Should you be marketing online or should you be marketing in person? What language do they use? And when I say what language do they use, yes, that can mean, Spanish, English, Mandarin or anything else. But it also means, do they use a laid back language, right? Are they
Mm.
extremely professional? So, for example, I can post the same post on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn and change it up just a little bit for each different audience. Same picture, different things, but I will change the language because LinkedIn is a little bit more formal than Facebook and Instagram. And then if I want to use the same thing on Twitter, well, dang, I have like what 240 characters now that I need to try to get it through, or then I have to make it through a thread. So I have to think about all these different things as I'm looking, to promote. So with that being said, one of the things that I went through all of that because price, product, and place plays a huge role in promotion. The reality is, and I've actually had this conversation with merchants before, people who buy product and sell them in stores or whatever, is that if our promotion is right, then you don't have a promotion problem. You have a price, a product, or a place problem, right? Your product is the wrong price. Sometimes, oddly enough, your product may be priced too low that people don't trust your product. They're like, it's too good to be true, right? So it is a fine balance with the price, not too high, not too low. Sometimes the product is just, there can be a multitude of things. Like I can't find the product. There's so many to choose from, or something else. And then place. So when I talk about too many to choose from, I just want to give Amazon, for example. You're looking for a white teddy bear, right? And you go on Amazon, you search for white teddy bear, and suddenly you find yourself leaving because they gave you 1,257 white teddy bears, right? And you're like, I just wanted one. Well, that comes because of what's called analysis paralysis, right? And when somebody chooses you to forces you to choose between too many things, then you have a hard time actually making a decision also. And I say that actually a lot of people sell their books on Amazon. And I'm not sure how much you guys pay attention to some of the ratings that are on Amazon, some of the things that will get you like on front page on Amazon. Those are things that I actually did while I was working for the publisher. I looked at like, how do you write, a description for Amazon? How do you create specific Amazon stores if you have, for example, a brand or whatever? What's your ranking right now in Amazon, and what categories are you ranking in? Look at your categories for your books that you're ranking in, because you'd be surprised. For example, you may have a domestic violence book and they may come up as number 2 in the parenting category. Like, just pay attention to where your books are, are being rated. And it could be because that's where people are looking at it for, or that's because that's how your product description is written. And one thing that I would say, I would think that a lot of indie authors probably don't do is spend enough time in their product descriptions, right? You don't have keywords in there. You don't know what people are searching for on Amazon, so on and so forth. Now I'm starting to get into like that place piece a lot, but that's a big part of making sure that your product actually rises to the top, so that you get sales.
I have a question for you, Regina. So
Mm-hmm.
I know we've been talking, a lot about the marketing piece of it and everything like that. Could you quickly just tell our viewers, how do you like balance all of this? Because it sounds overwhelming, So how can when somebody be great
Mm-hmm.
at doing this piece of it, this
Uh-huh.
marketing, as well as working their regular 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a child?
They
Like, is
can't.
it even possible to do all this?
Did you hear what I said? They can't. Um, so and that's my, and I actually get to that in a little bit. Um, the reality is that you can't be great at everything. So I was working on a growth series, and I think that I don't know if I've done that video yet, is that you can't be great at everything. And that's where people start to fall into like this hole of, I want to be good at all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to understand, like, I've honed my skills for 15 years and I'm a marketer solely, right? So I market my own business as well as marketing and working on marketing for other people, right? But if you go look at my Instagram page right now, RRP Marketing, there are 6 posts. up there, right? Because I took it down for a different reason and I started a new one. But I have 6 posts, right? Like I have to choose where I'm going to be good at. And my Instagram RRP marketing page, like today I was even thinking just like getting rid of it. Like, why do I even have it if I don't even like, if I'm not consistently creating posts over there, right? And so I say that to say is that you have to choose your one or your two things. And so, for example, if you say that Facebook is going to be like your place or whatever, let me start differently. If your target market, if you want to get people to buy your book in bulk, right, then you kind of need to reverse engineer what you need to do. One of the things that you're going to need to do is to have relationships with teachers, right? And relationships with librarians and all that type of stuff. And so then you want to say, okay, well, then how do I get in front of a teacher or a librarian? And what story do they actually need to hear? So, for example, one of the authors that was on your show, they made one of the authors that was on your show, they had children's books, right? And I was asking what grades they were for and that type of thing, because you want to go and you want to get in front of a teacher now and say, hey, I've written this book. This teaches these skills, right? What core curriculum things do you need for your classroom? Because that's important. Nobody cares if you wrote this cute book and if it doesn't fit their curriculum, right? Because they still have to meet their curriculum from a professional standpoint. And so you want to reverse engineer that. And then you want to write your sales pitch, for example. So what a lot of people don't know is that the marketers actually write and develop the materials that the sales team goes out and presents, right? So we create the videos for them. So say, for example, for a manufacturer, I would create their pitch and they would go out and say it. And we create documents for them to practice it and all that kind of stuff. They just need to have charisma and be like the workhorses out there, and they're really good at developing relationships though, right? So we tell them what to do. And so the same thing is that you have to know where you're going and you need to know your pitch. Like your pitch is going to be so important for you that you need to have that down packed. And then, like I said, figure out where you're going to spend your time. I would say when you're first starting, choose 1 to 2 places to spend your time. So I don't tell people to not spend their time on Facebook because you never know. Facebook is like the catch-all of everything. But if you want to, you can also say, okay, I know Facebook is a catch-all, but I can also create Facebook ads that's gearing toward teachers, right? Or that's going towards librarians. And that's the audience that I would look to target in this, certain area or this grade level or whatever. And you want to like focus. That's the reason why the target market is so important, because you really want to get hyper focused on what you're doing, because it's impossible to do it all.
Okay, let me ask you, viewers, something. All of my authors, can you just type in the comment field like who your target is, and if you are trying to sell bulk or you just, if you don't sell bulk, then what would you be doing? Just selling like individuals?
You're selling individuals to people, so for me and my mentality, this is the way I look at business models, right? My business model is to do whatever you can to stop selling to individuals, because individuals.
Okay, Regina, I feel like you just messing us all up. We're probably like, you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you why, right? And this is when it comes to, which I'm not even going into, because now we're talking strategic business and we're not talking marketing, right? And well, I guess it does still kind of go into target market. But I try to sell to organizations more than individuals, because individuals will give you $15, $20, $50, maybe 2 sessions, where organizations will put you on a retainer for thousands of dollars a month, right? Organizations will buy in bulk, right? And so you kind of work a little bit less, or let me not say less. You work smarter and not harder, and you get more bang out of your buck, right? And so like, even if I did have consumer goods, I would definitely get a start by selling to individuals, but I would start thinking about how can I get into retailers, right? How can I get my stuff on Walmart shelf, right? Like, I don't even have to do as much. Well, I do, because people still need to see the marketing for it. But then I can tell them, go to Walmart and get it, right? Because then it's easier for it. Not to mention, Walmart actually purchases the product from you, and then they get reimbursed when people actually purchase the product from Walmart. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at how to maximize dollars in real life. Like
So
that's always my thought.
real quick, shout out to Cassandra Edwards. She said her goal is to get a district to buy her book in bulk as a core novel in class. And then Tiffany also mentioned, she said target market parents. These are who she's
Mm-hmm.
targeting: parents, moms, educators, schools, bulk ideal, which with upcoming teachers guide. Okay,
Yes,
that's
that
good.
is good. And like I could go into so much of that. Like there is a journey that you may want to take also when you do that. So you may actually want to get in front of parents sometimes just to get them buzzing about it. And it starts to get the teachers thinking about, well, how can I get this in my classroom, right? Like
Mhm.
Harry Potter, like the students were talking about it before, like they may have started bringing it into classrooms or whatever else, however else they started using it, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes you want to reverse that. That's the reason why sometimes I say TikTok, right?
Mhm.
Because the kids are using TikTok. If kids start saying, Mom, I want to, get this book or whatever. Okay, well, mom is actually going to purchase it, but the author was on TikTok and they promoted it so much that they actually made the child want it. Now you have to be careful with that because you can't really advertise to children under 13, but
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Or if you do, you have to say, make sure you get your parents' permission to XYZ. Like that's that legal part that we talked about,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's that. So yeah, I think about, like I said, the journey to get people to do things. So the next slide that I have, this is my list of critical questions. And this is actually, and I'm going to be very transparent here. This is the list of questions that I use to filter clients,
Mhm.
right? And to filter whether or not I think they're actually ready to work with me. And I say that because I know that for my rate, if you don't have answers to some of these questions, it's going to be way too expensive for you to work with me as an individual, right? And so when you hear $50 an hour and then you're going to be on and on and on. And I forgot, I increased my price. I'm $75 an hour now. So if you hear $75 an hour, and if you have to do so many of these sessions, right, then it starts to get really expensive. So I ask these questions because these are things that you can actually go and start to try to figure out on your own before you actually start to bring in a consultant. And maybe you don't have like the greatest idea of like your target market, but but you can come with something to me, right?
Mhm.
If you come to me with everybody, nope, it's going to take too much time because then we have to do research, we have to do all these different things, and I'm not going to be able to serve you the best.
Mhm. Mhm.
So critical questions that I ask people and I say to ask yourself is, who is your target market? Very, very, like I said, start with the person. What do you sell? So this is a twofold question. Yes, you sell books, right? But what else do you sell? Do you sell the solution to get out of an abusive relationship, right?
Mhm.
Do you sell a, not just self-help, but do you sell sanity and peace? Do you sell anxiety? Do you sell something that says you're not on your own, right? Do you sell
Mhm.
escape, right? It's hard out here in these streets right now. So like, do you sell something that people can just escape in, right? Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
you may sell fantasy, but so does 970 billion other people because fantasy is one of those rising categories, right? So, okay, what else do you sell? Why should I, do this, right?
Mhm.
Also, what or I'm sorry, why would someone want to purchase your product? This is a really important question that I think that we need to ask ourselves more and more. Like I said, and that's really the question of asking, what problem do you solve? Why does
Mhm.
somebody actually want to purchase your product? Because yes, I could have an amazing mug, right? But there's amazing mugs everywhere. But
Yeah.
when I see a God is dope mug, right? And, I'm a person who loves to use the word dope. I have hip hop in my, I'm a hip hop chick, and I love Jesus, right? So I see
Mhm.
God is dope. I'm like, yeah, I want the God is dope mug, I want the God is dope t-shirt,
Mhm.
right? But, with them, they're actually selling relevancy, right? They're selling relevancy with Christianity. It's
Mhm.
not outdated anymore.
Mhm.
Um, this question that people get shocked when I ask, why would someone not want to purchase your product? Right?
That's a good one.
we have to ask ourselves those questions. Like you said, Martinique, oh, I don't have any cash. Well, you got swipe, right? You know, like we need to know what those objections will be. And sometimes we solve those objections in our communications, right? So for example, when I said, if somebody, like, we know that we're selling to a sales audience when we sell to African Americans a lot of times. So people are like, oh, I don't want to pay full price. Well, you can start that off with your messaging. This is what it is. This is what I do. This is what we blah, blah, blah. You know, I've spent a lot of time on making sure I had the correct pricing model. I'm actually $100 less than the average pricing agency, right? And so, like, I start my conversations. This is what my retainer is. If we were paying an hourly rate, this is what it actually would be. And so so they can't ask you for a sale because you just gave them a discount already, you know? So
yeah,
that's something else. Do you know your prices, right? It's, you just got to know your prices. I used to be one of those people that like made up prices on the spot. Like, you want a website? $500 sounds good. No, like now I have a pricing model to figure out like how much I charge for websites and for print and that type of thing. And same thing for your books, right? Do you know the prices of your books, especially if you have more than one? You know, are they good? I mean, not are they good, but are they realistic actually? And so that goes to my next question is, are you being realistic? A lot of us go out there and we say, I want to do this. So for example, agency rates are between $125 to $150 an hour, right? But my target market is nonprofits and solopreneurs, and small and mid-sized businesses from within like the minority or marginalized communities. I already know they're not spending $150 an hour for, you know, for this. They just don't have that money all the time. And so one of my whys is to help us diversify income anyways, and I just really love to do marketing for good. And so I'm realistic with my pricing. I'm not going to come to somebody and say, well, I'm $150 because that's the going market rate. Yeah, it could be, but then I also know my audience, and I have a dog that's right here. And then what have you done to advertise? So I like to see what people actually may have done. 1 second.
And so, guys, one of the things that I would love for you guys to tell me is, what do you sell? Don't just put in the comment field that you sell books, but I know specifically for Tiffany, she is actually an author that she's an engineer. So she's written a book specifically for STEM, and her books really want to help young people get into that field, like just expose them more into that field. So I would think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Tiffany, but I would think that her why would be, or what do you sell? I sell more exposure to kids. I sell STEM careers. I sell hope that you don't only have to work in a grocery store when you become
old. That answer that the last one, right? Because you said you sell hope. Can you hear me? Fine.
I can hear you.
Okay. So you said that you sell hope, right? That's the piece that you want to get to sometimes because you're trying to get to the emotion. So when we talk about influence and trust, like I sell hope that there's more than just, you know, working at a grocery store, or there's more than just being a doctor and a lawyer, right? Like all that kind of stuff. Because I'll say, even me, you know, I didn't know about anything outside of being a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher when I went to college. So, you know, just like you said, I sell exposure.
Yeah. And Tiffany said she's shaping our future generation through STEM. That's good, Tiffany.
I know that's right. So the next thing is, what have you done actually to advertise in general, right? And so I want to see how serious you are in regards to marketing and advertising your books. Because I think that a lot of people, they say that they are doing this and that they actually want to do this, but that's actually not always the truth, right? So it's just important to make sure that you're advertising. And then I actually do take all this information once I do know it, and I use it to do a little bit of research to figure out, like, because you're coming to me for consulting, you have some problem that you want to solve. And I start to go back and I look through those different P's that we talked about. and I try to figure out what your problem really is. So if somebody tells me I'm selling t-shirts for $50, nobody's buying them, I'm going to say it's because your t-shirts are $50. Like, I'm just going to tell you that or whatever. Sometimes I would say, like, well, why would they buy from you versus buying from this that's significantly cheaper, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to lower your price, but it may mean that you really need to develop your story or your product, right? And so those are things that we just really need to think about. So as we get into this, I want to talk about some common mistakes now that I see that people make when it comes to marketing and advertising and so on. Common mistakes include pride, right? They're just, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to do it, or such and such shouldn't be charging this price, or XYZ. You know, there's a lot of pride that I hear out there, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you are stepping on your own feet right now. They haven't defined the target market. Like I say, I keep telling everybody, or I keep going back to, everybody is not your target market, because we hear it so much. Even in the corporate world, when you're working with people outside of the field, we'll say, well, who's your target market? Everyone, anybody who, wants to buy it. Okay. Do you have $2.5 million then, so that we can reach everybody, since everybody is doing it? And so that's important. The next thing is that people just aren't realistic. Like I said before, like you think that you have the best things in sliced bread. You never ask anybody else or anybody beyond your mom or your sister, is this great, right? You have to have somebody that's going to be realistic with you also. Like, that's a good product, but maybe not. You have to have somebody that's accountable to you. Like, yeah, that sounds good, but maybe try something different, or try it this way, and so on and so forth. Like, even when people gave me constructive criticism when I was designing, for example, like, yeah, it may have hurt my feelings for a second. And even though they may not have said, well, it sucked, in my brain, I said, that sucked. I need to go back and do better. The same thing for like your book, right? A lot of times people get editors, and in their books, I would no lie, the books still have so many mistakes on the inside of them. You cannot be an author and have like all these grammatical mistakes on the inside, or grammatic mistakes on the inside. So that's important. A lot of people just don't understand the customer or the buyer journey. And so they think, oh, if I go out and, I'm going to say this next, but spray and pray, that things will just happen for me. And they don't understand that online it takes 32 impressions before somebody actually pays attention to you, right? And they don't understand that when somebody goes to a website, this is the number of clicks they want to take before they actually purchase. They don't understand that filling out your product description is actually important, not just for SEO, but for somebody that's actually making a decision, right? So that's important. A lot of people don't want to and know how to self-promote. And that's one that I could say is admirable. But if you're not hiring an agency or anything else, you're going to have to figure out how to find your own language, and you're just going to have to get comfortable with saying, this is what I do, because I'll use, the old adage, closed mouths don't get fed, right? So if you don't actually get out there, then you're not going to get fed. You don't actually spend time on advertising. A lot of people say, I just don't have time for it, right? And so, okay, well then don't expect anybody to know about it. A lot of people do the do-it-yourself approach. And to your point, Martinique, like, they're trying to do too many things at one time versus focusing on like one or two things. Just because you have a hammer, a wrench, and nails and all that kind of stuff doesn't mean that you have to pick them all up at the same time. They don't invest. That's just, it is what it is. People don't have a story. So what you see people doing a lot of times is, hey, I wrote this book, come buy it from me. And that's not necessarily the greatest. Messaging and graphics and photography is not great. Like, I see somebody right now that's putting themselves out there as a model, and this is no shade, the young lady is actually very pretty, but she doesn't have professional photos. And it's not even just they're not professional, they're not like cropped well and that type of thing. And so you're kind of like, once again, stepping on your own feet with that. And the same thing for like books, right? Take photos of your books, but clear out like your backgrounds. Like, we all know what it looks like when somebody has like everything else in the background. No, actually stage your products. Put a couple of ink pens in front of it, a mug in front of it. Like, just the typical pictures, but take time to actually do it. It's annoying. I have to do it sometimes myself, but that's important. Um, Sometimes people's websites just suck. Like, it is what it is. Sometimes people try to do it all. Sometimes people do more talk than they actually do doing. So they'll talk about how people aren't buying from them, so on and so forth. But I've never seen an advertisement from you one time, or maybe I've seen five and you expect it for it to happen overnight. Grammar is a big deal. I actually had somebody come to my inbox and ask me to do another presentation on grammar because they have a hard time supporting people who have poor grammar. So spelling, punctuation, all that kind of stuff. You may say, but I'm just a chef, right? It all matters, because if your grammar isn't right, I may think that your food is being prepared in a subpar place, right? And so it all actually matters. Um, Presentation. Sometimes people just don't take the time um, to put together a really, really good, well thought presentation. And that actually is what draws people in. And once again, creates trust. Even, when they have stores and people are like, well, why don't we support, these stores? Different people expect different things. So if your store isn't clean, or if you don't greet people, just that type of thing, those are like common mistakes also. Sometimes the product just isn't good, at least to me. Once again, there's a target market. And with that being said, you're targeting the wrong people. So, for example, your product may be desirable, but you're targeting the wrong audience for it. And so you just may need to switch up who you're going after with that. So, to Martinique's point, I just said, let's go ahead and stop spinning our wheels, right? That's the one thing that I don't want people on a hamster wheel going over and over and over again, and expecting, a different result or whatever. There is a method to the madness. And it's just about making sure that you're spending your time and doing things wisely. And so these are a list of classes that Martinique and I actually talked about, when it comes to this. And this is the free class right here, the Marketing Basics, the 101 class also. So yeah.
So thank you so much, Regina, for everything and just talking to us more about marketing basics, marketing 101. And I think the challenge may be sometimes is thinking, okay, well, I know that I had to do this all on my own, but I think it was comforting just to hear, focus on a little bit, like one or two things.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that really just helped me. And I hope that helped you all as the viewers, as well. Although these are all the classes that we're offering, you may say to yourself, all I need is 3 classes, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. You may not need all of the classes. I know me personally, I'm just that type of person that are like, I don't want to miss nothing. Give me all of them. But I did want to have Regina on the show, so she can talk to you more about it. Remember, the classes will be small and intimate. They'll just be a regular webinar that we're all used to, and you'll have that ability to ask Regina questions as well. We hope that you guys have a great remainder of the night, and we will talk to you all later. Bye bye.
Awesome. Bye bye.